I thought it was weak. I thought it was some bullshit.
They said Stephen A. went on Gil's Arena dressed like Tupac. They said Stephen A. went on Gil's Arena dressed like Martin on the episode where somebody stole his CD player. I don't know why they hating. It's a clean fit. Shout out Stephen A. Now, if you are a fan of the NBA, you know about this incident between LeBron and Stephen A. Smith. A couple of nights ago, Stephen A. Smith was at the Lakers game. He said he was with his agents, right? His representatives. And then LeBron walked up to him during a timeout in the third quarter, confronting him about comments on Bronny. To summarize it, from what I got from Stephen A. Smith, he's saying that LeBron was like, keep Bronny out your mouth, basically. During that moment, Stephen A. said that it wasn't LeBron, the player, approaching him. It was a parent. It was LeBron, the father, approaching him about, Bronny, critiquing Bronny too hard. And of course, Stephen A. had to respond once the video went viral. He went on First Take. He didn't really give much of a response, in my opinion, on the Stephen A. Smith show. Honestly, I'm going to keep it a buck. I didn't watch his response on the show. I did see a few clips of it. But on Gil's Arena, I watched that episode. It dropped yesterday. So I watched the full clip that they had for that segment of Stephen A. Smith being approached by LeBron. And, this is what he had to say.
What do you make of LeBron confronting you in the aftermath of that situation?
I thought it was weak. I thought it was some bull. But in the moment, I knew that I was listening to a father. Here's what happened. I'm represented by William Morris Endeavor. The founder of William Morris Endeavor, Ari Emanuel, had courtside seats right next to the Lakers bench. He had Larry David with him, star of Curb Your Enthusiasm. I'm sitting with them. I get there in the first quarter. I'm sitting courtside, and I stand up, and then I got my head turned. And then I turned back around, and a lot of people thought this was the end of the game or something like that. This was in the third quarter. Apparently, LeBron had walked out of the timeout, and I turn around, and he's right here in my face. He said, yo, you got to stop talking shit about my son. You got to stop my son. That's my son. That's my son. And I was like, what? He said, nah, f that. I said, yo, let's talk later. With my son. And I said, all right, though. And he walked off. So I remember during a timeout in the first quarter, seeing Bronny. And Bronny looked over at me, and he had this sad look on his face. And I'm imagining Pop saw that shit hit him. Yeah. And he couldn't hold it, and he rolled up on me. And so when I went on the air the next morning, first things first, believe it or not, I know this is shocking for people to believe, but I didn't have any intentions on talking about it until I woke up that morning and saw that this going viral. Once it's going viral, the bosses at ESPN, now you got to talk about it. This is you and him. You got to talk about it. I said, fine. So I go on the air and I said, the first thing that I'm going to do is establish that this was a father talking to me, not a player. And that was what threw me off. And I was glad, even though I thought that he misrepresented the argument, I was glad he did. Because you see, what he was really talking about, which was confirmed with his conversation with Richard Jefferson, is that I was talking about him as a father. And so what happens is that had he said that to me, then I wouldn't have been thrown off. I'd have came right back at him. Yes, I was. I was talking about you. You did this, which I'll get to in a second. But because he didn't do that, I said, fine, you let it go. Mind you, I just agreed to my contract. Courtside. That day was when it was announced. It's all over, everywhere. Watch, I be right. Yeah. It's a nationally televised game. The cameras are rolling, And I'm like, if I do anything, this is going to be a scene. Now, we can sit up here in front all we want to and act like we don't work for somebody. I work for Walt Disney. And if I had gotten into some with him at courtside right there at that moment, no matter how right I would have been, it would have been wrong. And I was like, I'm not going to do this. But once I saw the tape of him talking to Richard Jefferson Saturday night in Boston, that was when I got really pissed because that was confirmation. Now let's get to the father thing. And I'm so glad y'all asked me about this because all I would ask is that I've been around for 30 years. Tell me the parent that said they heard me talking about them. I've never done it.
Now, Stephen A. goes on to say more things about the situation, but I'm not going to play the entire interview. As a father, obviously Stephen A. knows, and I think, the rest of the world knows, that was the trigger for LeBron. I hope I have some good analogies. When, say you're a man and a woman comes up to you, it's like, as a man, you should be doing blah, blah, blah. Or as a man, you should know blah, blah, blah. Or da, da, da. I feel like that's kind of a similar trigger, or vice versa. If a man comes up to a woman and says, as a woman, you should know this, 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 and that, right? And I know it's, different roles, different genders saying it, and in this case, it's the same, Stephen A. and LeBron. As a father, it's like, who are you to tell me how to raise or how to conduct myself with my children? I feel like that's how LeBron took it. And I agree with Stephen A. with some points on Bronny, right? I think Bronny should be, just like how he is right now. He's playing in the G League. He's hooping, he's putting up numbers, right? But when you say as a father, it can kind of blind people to what else Stephen A. Smith had to say, and since the video has dropped, a lot of people are like, well, Stephen A., why are you saying all of this on a podcast? And why are you sitting down with Gilbert Arenas and saying all this stuff when you had the opportunity to say it to LeBron's face, right? And I'm like, did he really? He could have maybe got 2 exchanges in. Remember, this is the middle of a game. They're not about to sit down and have a full, 60 minutes, right? But I want to hear from y'all. I want to ask it both ways, right? Do you think it was fair or foul for Stephen A. to critique LeBron in the process of, LeBron getting Bronny to the league, or, kind of putting him in the spotlight, right? And do you think it's fair or foul of LeBron to come up and approach Stephen A. in such a manner, kind of catching him off guard at a game? So what do you think?